Hi, everyone. We hope everybody's doing well. So it's March 2022, the end of the 2-year COVID-19 lockdown. The whole world was impacted where most, if not all, worked remotely. As the world was figuring out how to get back to normal, such as returning back into the office, everyone adjusted and adapted as needed. And we were one of the companies that had to navigate through that change. The seismic event led to transformative changes and prompted an examination and understanding of the dynamics of Gresham Smith's workforce returning back to the office. Today, we look beneath the surface of the findings of our research to learn about the story of our employees and their experiences. First, we're going to take a look at the research objectives of the survey conducted and what methodologies were used to conduct the survey, the how in our process of attaining our goals. Next, we will report key findings that we uncovered during our survey analysis process and summarize the key insights we uncovered. Finally, we will present some recommendations for you to consider implementing to boost the overall satisfaction of the Gresham Smith's employees in returning back to the workplace. How exactly we can turn our findings into actions that can best support our employees.
So a little bit about Gresham Smith. Gresham Smith is a leading architectural, engineering, and design consulting firm based in Nashville, Tennessee. It was founded in 1967 by two architects, Beatty Gresham and Flem Smith, where they shared a passion for excellence in architectural engineering. Today, Gresham Smith has expanded to over 25 offices nationwide and brings to life architectural innovations that enhance and beautify the local communities that they serve, while also ensuring that human centricity is at the core of their execution. Gresham Smith has developed a strong expertise in both private and public sector projects, where several areas of expertise include aviation centers, such as airports and terminal construction, civic engagement and higher education centers, such as administrative and research facilities, as well as healthcare facilities, public infrastructure, public utility services, and even mixed use and workplace developments. In our findings to uncover what Gresham Smith employees have experienced during their COVID-19 lockdown, we decided on four main research objectives to, and to conduct a survey in the most effective and least intrusive manner to an employee's adjustment period and refamiliarizing themselves with office life. We determined that the four research objectives should be: first, to understand the psychological emotions, feelings, and experience of Gresham Smith employees in the weeks and months upon the return to the office. Second, to understand the spaces in which the offices were utilized the most, to determine if Gresham Smith is providing their employees with proper resources and amenities to conduct their jobs effectively. Third objective was to understand the employee's overall experience returning back to the office with the goal of continually improving upon their experiences and to generate a more positive outlook on just being back in the office with their colleagues again. Lastly, the fourth and final objective was to understand how employees' emotions and experiences would change over time following several months after their initial return experience. As Gresham Smith employees worked across 25 different offices nationwide, it would be quite impossible to access all employees based on assumptions applied to the perspectives of a single headquarters location. So the best method to gather information across all 1,033 employees would be to issue survey invitations through the use of our Qualtrics digital surveying tool. Surveys were initially distributed to employees on the third day back to the office and was distributed proportionally throughout the remaining 4 months of our assessment. What we found was that of the 1,033 employees surveyed, 837 employees participated overall. And it is important to recognize that not all employees participated in all 6 surveys distributed. At times, they may have only responded selectively to a couple surveys. This is evident when you take a look at the initial survey response rate of 81% compared to when you viewed the overall response rate across all 6 surveys, which was 25% overall. Nonetheless, each response received is beneficial to our findings, and we value the employees taking time out of their day to respond. In addition to the 6 online surveys, we also proctored 2 focus groups. One focus group was hosted at the Nashville headquarter location, while the other was hosted online and designed for employees who do not have direct access to the Nashville location.
And now let's look at the first objective. So the first week back in the office, we asked about the emotions that they felt returning to the office, and they reported a wide range of feelings. However, looking across all these emotions, the five most evident across employees were excitement, comfort, happiness, stress, and tiredness. This begins to tell the story of their experiences in returning to the office after the COVID-19 lockdown. What we uncovered didn't simply illustrate a clear-cut story of emotions, but a mixture of feelings, the positive to negative emotions. From the mixture of emotions that Gresham Smith's employees felt during the first week after returning to the office, we discovered that the sensation of negative emotions increased while the initial positivity faded after 3 months. We discovered a significant decrease in the emotions of happiness, excitement, stress, awkwardness, and feeling overwhelmed, while seeing a robust increase in feeling annoyed, indifferent, displeased, and frustrated. The employees' experiences, while still weren't clear cut, continued to be a combination of different emotions, but this time negativity rose. In the midst of the highlighted emotions, little or to no change occurred in feeling afraid, relaxed, motivated, angry, comfortable, sad, surprised, grateful, relieved. We learned that each and every Gresham employees, while sharing similarities in the emotions experience, still vary in their overall experiences about returning to the office. But an important part of this tells us the context of the drastic growth of negative emotions rising.
Following that with Objective Two's information and data, when we look at the first week returning to office, there was a few common spaces that were used the most frequently. This includes individual workstations, small group spaces, hub or work lounge areas, and large group spaces. 93% of employees reported working at their own individual desk the majority of their day. What this reveals about Gresham Smith employees is that there is a proven importance on employees having access to dedicated and individually assigned workstations where they can return to these spaces when not participating in a collaborative environment, even as the scope of work that Gresham Smith is involved in requires constant cross-collaboration among different teams and departments throughout the lifespan of a project. There's still relevance for employees to continue the bulk of their tasks in an individual setting. In addition, when considering the amount of time spent actually collaborating with other teams and departments, spaces where teams and other departments are able to gather away from the individual desk spaces were actually the next most frequently used spaces in the office. A further 31% of employees reported frequenting small group office spaces, 27% of employees frequented hub or work lounges, and 26% of employees spent time collaborating in large group workspaces. Amongst these second to fourth most used workspaces in Gresham Smith's offices, there is a relative similarity of usage amongst each type of workspace. This suggests that Gresham Smith offers a variety of different meeting spaces among their offices and encourages fostering joint collaboration and iteration work to be completed in person. In addition to that, when comparing the usage of office spaces from the first week to 4 months later, employees still reported generally same levels of frequency amongst available spaces of usage, where there were several differences when reviewing how office spaces were used just 4 months after employees were adjusting to their new routine. Individual desk stations are still the most reportedly used office space, even as the frequency dropped from 93% usage to 85% usage. However, small group space usage increased from 31% to 43%, most frequently used. A surprising finding is that the increase in frequency of focus room usage has also increased from 16% in the first week returning back to office to now 20% usage. So while individual desk stations are reduced, there is still a strong significance for individual workstations and a desire for employees to have quiet spaces that they can prioritize their individual tasks away from collaborative settings. Further looking at what the extended lockdown from COVID-19 brought was a surge in employees investing their personal funds into developing a comfortable in-home workspace, improving it for functionality and efficiency. So once employees returned to the office, it was crucial to ensure that we, Gresham Smith, are providing employees with the same quality of technology support that they have grown accustomed to while back at home. In our assessment, employees reported positive experiences in the amount of technology and office resources available compared to the resources that they had access to remotely. While remote technology reported the highest level of satisfaction at 92%, the differences between in-office and remote resources support is actually quite marginal. Gresham Smith has actually successfully ensured that employees have the required tools to complete the job, regardless if they're working remotely or in office on any given day. Here, employees rated Gresham Smith's support for providing technology and other resources in office at an 89% level of satisfaction.
And now we're going to talk about the overall experience that our employees experienced during in their returning over time. So the mean overall return experience was between a 6 and 7 out of 10 from survey to survey. So above average to fairly good. Employees rated their overall experience significantly higher by 0.35 in survey 3 than 5 and 6. But a plot twist, the dip here isn't due to unhappiness because the low ratings were stable, but rather the enthusiasts stopped being enthusiastic. Around 10% of respondents moved out of the top range from 8 to 10. And initially, most employees were excited about coming back to the office. However, their experience over time unfortunately reduced that excitement. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about the office benefits. Employees reported a variety of benefits they deemed to be valuable as office advantages, ranging from impromptu conversations, easier collaborations, camaraderie, printing and copying capability, fostering a sense of belonging, mentoring relationships, getting out of house, office social activities, and maintaining the Gresham Smith's culture, and a work-life separation. Among all of these office advantages, the data revealed that the impromptu conversations, easier collaboration, and camaraderie are the top three most valuable office advantages reported, with impromptu conversation having the highest percentage. So this data reveals to us what is described and experienced to be valuable to the employees. It gives us the insights on what is beneficial to the eyes and experiences of our teams. Now we're going to talk about the remote benefits. So the no commute actually rose as the most valuable remote advantage reported, and it was followed by greater flexibility in their schedules. Employees also reported the value of better concentration and productivity, as well as fewer expenses. Not far from the same percentages from these remote work advantages were also the physical comfort and access to family. However, among all of these benefits, not commuting evidently stays as the most valuable remote advantage. This data also allows us to understand what and how remote work helps and supports employees while learning what is most valuable to them and beneficial in working. Now, moving on to the best office moments. So, socializing and working with others in person and access to food and coffee were rated as the highest of what is described as the best office moments for our employees. This data tells us how in-person activities and interactions are what provide the highest value and the best experiences for our teams. By learning this data, we understand what employees appreciate and enjoy to make working in the office more valuable, meaningful, and supportive of their well-being. As for the remote best moments, employees reported that more comfortability, convenience, and flexibility ranks as a top experience. This is followed by no commute, easier to concentrate, and better work-life balance. This data reveals that half of the employees shared a similar experience of appreciating how more comfortability, convenience, and flexibility provide the best moment in working remotely. As for the improvement, when employees were asked about what could be improved in their experience returning back to working in the office, the highest feedback was reducing days required to be in the office and followed by quieter environments. This data uncovers employees wanting a better work-life balance and better office spaces. Among these, employees also reported other improvements, but most also agreed that facilities, lighting, temperature, technology, and cleanliness in the office, as well as commute, could help improve their overall experience. Moving on, we're going to talk about the strategies. On the strategies that could make their experiences more positive, employees rated change in schedule as the highest request, followed by organized, upgraded, and added office equipment. Aligning with the improvement they've suggested, headphones while in office could help in solving quieter environments, while focused work at home can help support and better concentration. The data reveals that by doing hybrid work and strategizing it accordingly, employee work experiences could improve significantly. Now, for the final comments pertaining and answering our objective 3 in our research, hybrid is effective and more enjoyable for employees, boosting productivity and supporting well-being. And more flexibility in the required days to work in office would help support work-life balance. Unorganized, unfair, and unclear guidelines must be addressed, including office environment issues. Finally, flexibility benefits could be improved. These data reveal what is most helpful and valuable to the employees that can provide support in improving their work experience. As for the strongest predictors on experience, when it comes to what factors predict overall experience returning to the office, the strongest is how effective they felt while working in it. The next strongest was how well the office and remote workspaces supported the collective needs of their work modes. And then the next strongest predictor is their sense of connectedness, whether it be their team, their market, or to Gresham Smith itself.
And now for our final objective, let's start by looking at how employees rated the level of support the office gave to each of their modes of work. For collaborating and socializing, ratings of support between the first week in the office and a few months back held consistent, while learning improved significantly. Unfortunately, focus work support did not get the same increase, and roughly half of employees were still either not at all or a little supported by the office. And when comparing the office versus remote space support, the office leads in socializing work. The greatest disparity is with focus work, however, with the mean rating for the office support at 2.5 out of 4, which is the midway point between a little and somewhat supported. In contrast, employees gave remote support a 3.82 mean rating, nearly exactly the highest possible score of 4 for a great deal of support. Although learning work mode support increased in office, still trails somewhat behind remote. Next, those employees who selected not at all or a little for any of their work modes, support ratings, are asked to share why their needs are not met. So nearly 2/3 of these employees cited distractions and loudness in the office area. Also, 19% of these respondents reported feeling there was no benefit to working in the office. And lastly, 9% needed more collaboration areas. And so when it comes to how effective employees felt while in the office, the distributions here were fairly consistent from survey to survey. However, 27 to 32% of employees reported that they were not at all or only a little as effective in the office as they wanted, while only 2% did so for the remote effectiveness. In other words, 98% of employees felt they were moderately or to a great extent as effective as they'd like working remotely versus just 68 to 73% while working in the office. And next, as for connecting with their team, this hybrid environment, 68% of employees reported their connection to their team had remained the same, while a quarter said that their connection had increased since coming back from lockdown, and just 7% experienced a decrease. And finally, going deeper into the employees' experiences with connection, their average rating for team connectedness was midway between moderately and greatly connected. Connectedness to the market and Gresham Smith were rated similarly moderately.
And so for 3 main key takeaways is that employees are more effective when working remotely. And second, noise distractions reduce an employee's level of focus and effectiveness when working in office. And finally, employees still value informal socialization and in-person collaborations highly. And with that, our recommendations to continue supporting and encouraging our Gresham Smith employees is to provide flexibility and variations to the amount of days employees are required to work in office, And then second, expand or redevelop underutilized spaces in the office and turn it into additional focus room spaces. And finally, encourage informal social connection or team engagement events during office hours to promote inclusive company culture. By applying these recommendations, the fruits of this assessment, we will be able to strategize how we can continue to best support our employees and strengthen the Gresham Smith's workforce.
So in conclusion, as it's only been 4 months since employees have returned back to the office on a regular basis, it's important to recognize that they are still adjusting to their new hybrid schedules. So the employees are appreciative of Gresham Smith's measures to pivot to a hybrid work schedule rather than full time in the office. They would just perhaps like to work maybe fewer days in the office. If leadership continues to support hybrid schedules for the long term, employees will have opportunity to work on their individual tasks away from the distractions of office interactions and social chats and other noises. Uh, this will boost employee focus, retention, and increase overall morale and support for leadership. So, in contrast to remote work, employees have experienced value in returning to the office again after nearly 2 years away. Being back in the office enables employees to collaborate with their teams more effectively and generally rate the team camaraderie in a positive light. With this in mind, it's important to continue encouraging employees to pursue informal interactions with their peers when working in the office. Alternately, company-sponsored social events are another avenue to increase employee socialization. This not only incentivizes employees to work in person, but also employees to develop a stronger sense of connection to their team and to Gresham Smith overall.
And with that, we do want to thank you for allowing our firm, Team Truins, to conduct an analysis on the return to office experiences of Gresham Smith employees. We hope you found our assessment valuable and look forward to seeing Gresham Smith prosper in all future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.